Welcome back to the Double Duck Garage and video number 7 of Scotty's MGTF 135 head gasket replacement series. You'll probably be aware from previous videos that I overcooked the TF somewhat on a track day. It hit gas mark 99 and went bang, and the liners have dropped ever so slightly in the block. So what I've had to do, take the entire engine out, put shims under the liners and rebuild the block. That was covered in video number 6 previously. This video I'm going to work on the cylinder head, get the valves back in, and then get the head onto the engine block and the whole thing back together with the gearbox in the rear subframe. That's the plan. Let's crack on with it and see how much I managed to get done. Here we have 2 exhaust valves, one before cleaning and one after. The valves cleaned up well, and the next job was to lap them into the head. As you'd expect, I started with the coarse compound. If you don't clean the top of the valve, probably the tool won't stick to it, and then when you start the grinding motion, the tool will just come off. The action is to turn the valve left and right in a grinding motion, then lift the valve, turn it 90 degrees, drop it back down and repeat. Then it's the same again, but this time with the fine compound. One thing that's very important after this is to clean up properly. Make sure that all traces of the grinding compounds are removed. Fitting the valve oil seals is a simple job. Use a bit of lubricant and just tap them into place. Now I get to the exciting bit, putting the perfectly lapped and clean valves back in the head. I thought it would be useful to cover one valve installation in more detail and try to get some close-up video. The valve, spring and spring cap are in position. I then use a valve spring compressor to, unsurprisingly, compress the spring. This exposes the top of the valve stem. There's a groove around the stem that a ridge on the collet fits into. I use grease or some assembly lube to help the collet stick to the valve. Whatever you do, don't drop a collet. They're small and can take hours to find. Ask me how I know. When the pressure is taken off the spring, it expands, pushing the spring cap upwards, trapping the collets in position. So it's fair to say that that's not a terribly difficult job. It's fiddly, it's a little bit annoying, you just have to be patient with it. Yeah, there's worse jobs. You can see more clearly here how this fits together. Actually very simple. So I'm very pleased to say that's all 16 valves back in. I think the laying on fireworks, just because I've got a few valves in the head, is probably a bit excessive, but works for me. So for the next job, just going to use a socket, a rubber mallet, and I'm just going to go through and I'm going to give the tops of each of those a sharp tap, and that's just to make sure the collets are properly seated. Apparently I should have stored them this way up. That would stop the oil draining out, but if you can see the state of the oil that has drained out, I'm actually very glad that that is out and it's not going to go back into my lovely clean rebuilt engine. So these will need refilling before they can go back into the head. But once that's done, and once all 16 of the cam followers are back in, I can put the camshafts on and the cam rail and all of that. This bolt broke when I was dismantling the head. Unfortunately, no way will it come out with mole grips. You certainly get plenty of practice drilling out bolts when you're working on an MG. That's 6mm, so I'm going to start with an M5 and tap out with that. I just need to run a 6mm tap down there now, just to clear any swarf out of the thread, then stick a bolt in there, make sure that's okay, and then hopefully it's job done. So it's time for some cleaning now. The head needs a very good clean, as does the cam rail. Well, that took a little bit longer than expected, but everything is lovely and clean and now ready for assembly. All those heavy black lines is where the sealant goes, and I've got to do all that in 20 minutes. I'm using Loctite 5188 for this, same as we used on Swampy's VVC head. Unfortunately, it was cold out here and a little bit damp, and the camera lens messed it up. It actually left me with no usable video, which is somewhat frustrating, but on the plus side, we did cover this in quite a lot of detail in one of Swampy's videos, so I can skip forward to talking up the cam carrier bolts. Well, it's all apart again, and this, I don't understand why these are breaking, because that turns very easily. All I needed was a pair of mole grips just to grip the end of the screw, and it turned and just came straight out. That's really strange. I don't know what to make of that, why that broke, and why that broke so easily. It's less than 10 Newton meters, and that's the second bolt I've had that's done that. So I decided I'm going to buy a whole new set of bolts for this. One broke when I was dismantling this in the first place. Obviously I've just broken another one, and there was a completely different type of bolt, a non-standard bolt, that indicates that another one had broken and been replaced with the wrong part. Whilst I was waiting for the new bolts to arrive, I stripped the subframe, cleaned it and applied rust remover. It's a little bit chilly outside, so I have moved the subframe into the garage, and let me just see if I can spin this around a little bit. And although I haven't got a lot of space in here, yesterday afternoon I had a session painting this stuff on, and this afternoon I shall be having a session painting this stuff on. Two coats of paint and it's looking pretty good. Unfortunately the budget didn't run to dipping and powder coating, however this is a car to be thrashed around the track, so it doesn't actually have to be concourse. A few days later and the head was back together with new bolts. I wanted to make sure that the cams turned freely, which they did. This is the point where the rest of the subframe and suspension components were cleaned, rust removed and made ready for painting. Surprise, surprise, more broken bolts. These actually broke a couple of months ago when I was dismantling. This is all the remains of the two bolts that hold the hydro mount onto the buttress. So the challenge I have at the moment is freeing up all of these rod ends. They are well and truly rusted on. They are really fighting back. So I've been using a lot of duck oil, getting things absolutely soaked like that. I am using heat. And basically knocking hell out of them. Yeah, not the best way to treat my tools, don't like doing this, but I kind of have a sacrificial set of spanners that I can use and abuse if I absolutely have to, and unfortunately this afternoon is one of those times when I absolutely have to. On the plus side, the subframe now looks like this, and the subframe mounts look like this, and all in all, I'm making good progress. It's actually getting to the stage where I'm going to have to spend some more money, buy the new springs, dampers and poly bushes. So that's not going to be cheap, but hopefully it's going to absolutely transform the handling of the car. So these have been soaked with duck oil for a couple of days now. No doubt they are still going to be very difficult to remove. I think it's fair to say that I haven't got the tools to do this job. So one or two things are going to happen. I'm going to have to spend some decent money, or I'm going to have to pay somebody else to do this. So I'm going to bring this video to a close now and have a think about the best way forward. I really don't like having to give up on things, so you can probably guess which way this is going to go. I did say at the beginning of this video that I was hoping to get the engine and gearbox back in the subframe. Quite clearly that's not going to happen, but I always was rubbish as a project manager anyway. Whatever I think I'm going to do, it always takes me 3 times as long and costs me 3 times as much. And this is what happened to my Vice, proving beyond any doubt that the tools are definitely not up to the job. Whilst I was waiting for the new Vice, I could carry on with the parts refurbishment and painting. Thanks for watching, I'll be back soon.